Hey folks, I am crammed in the woodshed sideways. It is very cold, it is very windy. I just posted a video from earlier. If you have seen that, it is the way it is with the homestead. Yeah, I do want to touch on a few things. A little while ago, an older lady that I know, I'm going to say this in the nicest way I know how. She's kind of snide, kind of snooty. Will call you out on a lot of things in a condescending way. Do I love her? Absolutely. Do I enjoy talking with her? I do not, because I have to bring out all my college words to talk to her, or she'll call me on it. Right? So she's familiar with geese and she's familiar with homesteading. And I was talking about my geese and my Muscovies and my setup that I was going to put in place, and some of it I have. And I called, and I do on here too, my male geese, male geese, knowing full well that technically they're called Ganders, right? So she goes, "You homestead? Don't you know that male geese are called Ganders? I would think you would know that." Well, I do know that, but when I talk out to the general public who has no idea about geese, male geese says it all, right? No technical terms, simplifying it. That's just what I do, right? And I call my birds my flock. And she said the same thing. "Don't you know that a group of geese are called gaggles? I would think you would know that." Well, I do know that, but it's a bird flock, and everybody understands what a flock of birds is, right? So if you say my geese flock, then it's understood. Everybody gets that, right? Simplified. It's just easier on me, and it's easier on everyone else. And it's not easy on her because apparently I made her ears bleed because I was using the wrong words, right? So that's a little irritating. So yes, a male goose is called a gander. A female goose is called just a goose. A flock of geese is called a gaggle, right? I just say flock. So there's that, right? So with that said, if you are considering getting geese and you want them to be friendly towards you, in my opinion, from my experience, and I've heard a lot of different things, but everybody is in agreement that Toulouse geese are some of the friendliest. So aren't the Emdens. I've had both over the years, and I will continue getting either the Toulouse geese or the Emdens. Now I know there's all kinds of other geese out there that are friendly too. I'm just familiar with the ones I know, folks, okay? The Toulouse geese they tend to be a bigger goose. So if you are going to start out with geese and you don't want the bloody fights, folks, all you need is one male goose, gander, and at least one female goose. So for each gander, for each male goose, I think the good ratio is for every male goose, you can have up to 3 female geese, in my opinion. Some breeds, I guess, you can have up to 5, 8, 10. But if you plan on allowing them to breed for little hatchlings, goslings, if you have one male and let's say 3 female geese, and he services each one of them, sometimes he prefers one goose over the other 2, or sometimes 2 over the 3. Sometimes he'll service all 3 of them. But when they lay eggs, not every one of those eggs are going to be fertilized. So if they like to lay in the same nest, folks, okay? Or side by side. they will all try to sit on that one particular nest all at the same time. It gets very crowded. They cram each other in there. They lay on top of each other. And that has a tendency to ruin the eggs, right? They crack. So unless you separate them, right? I've been trying to hatch goose eggs for quite a few years now, 4 or 5. I have not had any luck because I realized that I figured out that the only goose I had at the time all those years was sterile. So I was gifted by friends of the family the 2 Toulouse buff dewlap. I'm not sure which order that goes in. Geese, which are the lighter ones, and they happen to be male, and they're brothers. And they fight, right? So last year, it just wasn't a good year for hatching just about anything, folks. And I found all 5 geese on the same nest, and it ruined all the eggs. So what I'm trying to do this year is to separate some of the females, or at least keep the 2 females together, which I've done today, because they're sisters, right? And separate the 2 brothers, the dewlap geese, separate them, and have them have their clutch in there, so not so many geese are apt to crush the eggs. Well, for what I've got now, I at least need 2 more female adult geese. I do, in order to satisfy the males that I do have here. So, I'm not really sure. I either have to do that or I have to get rid of at least 1 male goose, right? And I'm really not liking the sounds of that, because if something happens to one of my fertile male geese, I have another backup, right? So I've got to come up with something different, or I've just got to do something different. So this is all part of homesteading. You figure it out as you go. You could ask 100 different people that have raised geese or do raise geese, and you're going to get 100 different answers, because the geese that you have, even though they're geese, they're just different, right? Like you and I, we're human, but we're different in so many ways, right? So it's all a guessing game. It's trial and error, and you learn to really know your geese after a while, and what works and what doesn't. Both those male geese have cleaned themselves off. The 2 females are happy with the male. The 2 other male geese are, they're best buddies right now with the 3 in the pen. That could change at any moment, right? But they're all clean. They're all scarred up on the nose, but there's no more blood visible. They've washed it all off. And I found last week, the people that gave me the 2 male buff dewlap Toulouse geese, again, I don't know that order, they said that they got them from the county fair, and those were 2 blue ribbon prize geese. So that was really nice to know. They're very friendly. I've heard horror stories. My grandparents had geese growing up, and we were told stay right away from them. So the mailman wouldn't come up the driveway. Nothing. So those were mean. Those were the big geese with a really long neck with the bump. Now I don't know if those tend to be. I don't know my geese other than what I've got here, folks. I don't know what those geese were. I could by doing some research, I'm sure. So I don't know if they were just 2 that just happened to be mean, if they're a nice breed, or if that breed has a tendency to be mean. I don't know which. But I know my cousin Shay, her mother got geese, growing up out of the same flock my grandparents did, and those were mean too. So I don't know, folks. If you get geese, before you get your geese, make sure you have the setup. Make sure you have an understanding of geese. And for crying out loud, folks, if you have some snide, condescending, older fuddy-duddy, that need you to talk to them in the proper terms. For crying out loud, please learn those terms, folks, because that's just never pleasant.